Welcome back to Kumba Hineni, a podcast on intersectionality, more than just getting deep. I'm your host, Enzi, and next week, a week from today, is October 11th, which is just National Coming Out Day. So, with that, I will spend this episode doing another solo episode, and it will be about my coming out journey. Alright, here we go. So, in October of 2005, I made a decision that I could not have imagined. Earlier that year, I made a commitment to myself and honestly to God that I would live my life as authentically as possible. The world I knew already drastically changed. The fears of Y2K was quickly replaced with the fears of terrorism. Somehow between my senior year in high school and my senior year in college, the United States experienced the Twin Towers attack and the Pentagon attack. Those of us with Muslim friends and family watched the accumulation of centuries of Islamophobia in the U.S. begin to shine and was acceptable. This Islamophobia in this nation did not discriminate, nor did they really care about distinguishing between the mainstream Muslim community and the Nation of Islam. There was little concern about the dignity of humanity of those targeted. In Black and Muslim communities alike, there was a heightened level of fear. By the summer of 2003, we had already gone to war. In the spring of 2003, a tornado ripped through my undergrad campus, eventually destroying the dorm I lived in. We managed to be secure in the basement of that dorm, and the final reality that things would never be the same came with the news of Hurricane Katrina. My family's from New Orleans, and I never had the chance to visit before Katrina. Instead of going to my family reunion in 2004, I chose to go to Namibia to do mission work. This is somehow a long way of saying that by the October of 2005, I was ready for a change and committed to being as authentic as possible during my senior year in undergrad. I was well known and, I was pretty popular. More than that, I was seen as a spiritual leader. I had disciples. I realized how cultish this may sound and actually was, but more on that in another episode. Ultimately, people looked up to me and depended on me to guide them. In my senior year, I was still hosting my Christian radio show on campus, as well as supporting the college newspaper. Coming out on air without consulting my co-hosts was not an option. So, in October of 2005, I made the decision to write an article about being Christian and gay. The aftermath was expected. Students who I thought were some of my closest friends turned their backs on me. I received emails and even letters in the mail about how misguided I was and will be going to hell. Being told I was going to hell was not the worst part of it. The worst part was the times I believed it. It has been 16 years since I wrote that article in the school newspaper, and I'm still coming out in many ways. I came out as a lesbian, as genderqueer, as a trans man, as gay, as Jewish, and just when I thought I was done coming out, I discovered that I was autistic. So in many ways, this is my coming out episode. I asked folks to ask me any questions they wanted to ask about my coming out story. Here's one of the questions and answers. Which one of your identities do you feel like most oppressed? Which is most understood, and where do you find the most acceptance? This is such a great question. And so this is a question I found myself asking over and over again, actually, which one of my identities are most oppressed. I remember in undergrad constantly asking myself, why am I being treated so differently? Was it because I was Black? Was it because I was perceived as a woman? Back in those days, I was still under the impression that Christians were under attack. And so I often asked myself, was it because I was a Christian? Yes, those were the days that evangelical Christian world seemed obsessed with homosexuality and obsessed with becoming a Christian martyr. As I continue to embrace my authentic self, it means being all of the parts of me in harmony with each other. I feel the realities of being a descendant of enslaved Africans. The first thing I have ever looked The first thing I've ever learned to hate was my own body. My dark skin, my nappy hair, my ashy skin, my stutter, my bony body. I was always told I talked too much and too fast about things that no one cared about. I had no clue until the beginning of this year, 2021, that I was autistic. In hindsight, I can look over most of my life and see very clearly how being autistic has impacted my life from the micro to the macro. The constant feeling of being misunderstood, misheard, and misrepresented was one of my everyday normal realities of the way I was living my life, or perceived to be living my life. So to answer which one is most impacted or most oppressed, I will say that I cannot answer that question because all of me makes up who I am. I am never really sure which one people are upset about. And as I continue to live my life, the question I ask is, how can I be authentic if I am dissecting parts of who I am? Likewise, when we talk about the other two parts of this question, which is most misunderstood and where do I find the most acceptance? So I will say which one I feel is most misunderstood, and that is me as an autistic adult or person. I say that because most of my life of feeling misunderstood was based upon that reality. I did not know before that time, and yet I felt as if I was living this different reality and speaking a different language than those folks around me. The constant push and pull, the constant confusion on why do people think I'm aggressive or overwhelming or too much. The uneasiness with my inability to tell a lie. The agitation I get when people aren't telling the truth. I remember when I was a child in the 90s, and one of my favorite songs was Stressed Out. And that was a song that I constantly had playing. I really know how I feel stressed out. And one of the things that I remember listening to those songs was the reality that at that time, as a 12-year-old girl, it was feeling misunderstood. And as I understand it now and look back at those, it was really about myself as an autistic person. And then to get to the final part of this question. Which one of these identities do I find the most acceptance in? That is a hard one, but it's an easy one to answer as well. As a person perceived as a gay man, and as a gay man, that is the easiest, the identity I think folks find easier to accept. I have found myself in situations where when I've been involved in churches and even some other faith communities where my gay self was accepted much easily and much more readily than my black self. And that is the reality I've had to tend with and live with, of how do I find full acceptance with all of who I am, no matter what. So as I talked a little bit about the way I came out in 2005 and how this has impacted my life now, what I want to say is this. We all have our own journey, our own paths, and lives that we are living and going on. And you get the chance to live your life as authentic as possible. You get the chance to guide what that looks like and how that may look. So as we prepare for next week, which is National Coming Out Day, I want to say this one more time. Hey y'all, again, this is Enzi, and I am a gay, trans, disabled, Jewish male who is autistic. And I'm proud of all of who I am, all of who I've been, and all of who I will become. Because that makes me. All of that makes me. So, again, happy National Coming Out Day. If you are wanting to come out and you are needing support and encouragement, there are people in your life, I am sure, that will love and gladly be there to support you. And to those who don't have that support, may Adonai give you the strength, the energy you need to continue on your journey. Again, this is Enzi with Kumba Hineni, a podcast on intersectionality, more than just getting deep. We talked a little bit about coming out. Until next time, thank you and have a great day. Kumba Hineni, a podcast on intersectionality, more than just getting deep, is a part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. You can email the show at podcast@tcjewfolk.com. For more information, go to tcjewfolk.com/podcast.